I'd like to begin by thanking everyone who has been with me on this podcasting journey. Those who have listened, those who have shared these conversations with others, and those who are still finding their way here. I also want to thank everyone who has held me gently in their thoughts and prayers as I continue along my healing trajectory. Now, let's gently turn to today's conversation. Have you ever noticed that overgiving can become a pattern in the nervous system, one the body eventually begins to speak through? Maybe you have. Maybe you haven't. Either way, I'd like to share one small boundary you can practice this week. I hope it will be useful to you. Welcome back to Silent Medicine, where science meets spirit and where healing is allowed to be quiet, honest, and rooted in inner authority. I am Dr. Nnenna Ndika, clinical psychologist, integrative medicine doctor, and someone who believes boundaries are not a personality trait. They are nervous system protection. They are self-respect in action. And sometimes they are the first place healing becomes real. Today, we're talking about boundaries, burnout, and what I call the spirit of overgiving. If you struggled with boundaries, I want to begin here. This isn't necessarily a willpower issue. It's not that you're bad at saying no, and it's not that you lack insight. For many people, overgiving was learned. It was practiced. It was rewarded. And it became conditioning. Sometimes it was the way you stayed safe. Sometimes it was the way you stayed loved. Sometimes it was the way you stayed needed, which can feel like love when belonging had to be earned. So when we talk about boundaries, we're not just talking about your calendar. You're talking about your nervous system, your identity, your attachment patterns, your cultural norms, your personal inclinations, your spiritual framework, and sometimes your grief. And in many ways, I see boundaries as an act of love. Because when you set a boundary, you're not saying, I don't want you. Rather, you're saying, I want this relationship to last, or I want to remain in this relationship, but not at the cost of abandoning myself. A boundary is how you communicate your expectations, the way you deserve to be treated, what you can participate in, and what you cannot. If you didn't care, if you didn't respect the person or didn't want them in your life, you might simply walk away the first time a line is crossed. But when you care, you speak up. You name what you need. You make things clear. You give the relationship a chance to remain clean and healthy. and what happens after that, how those expectations are received and respected, helps guide your next decisions. That's what I mean when I say boundaries are love in practice. A boundary is a way of protecting connection without sacrificing yourself. Now, have you ever wondered how overgiving shows up in the body? I have a few thoughts. So let's talk about that for a moment. Overgiving doesn't only drain your time, it drains your body, your energy. Because when you keep saying yes while your body is whispering no, you create an internal contradiction, a chronic inner conflict. And the nervous system does not do well with contradiction. It longs for safety. It responds to clarity. It settles into congruence and coherence. So the body begins to signal when it perceives contradiction. For some people, it looks like fatigue that doesn't fully resolve with rest, brain fog, or forgetfulness, headaches, jaw tension, or tightness in the shoulders. For others, it shows up as gut symptoms that flare when life feels demanding, and sometimes even only slightly demanding. Pain that migrates or intensifies during seasons of pressure. Sleep that becomes lighter, more fragmented, or sometimes difficult to access at all. Or like an immune system that seems to dip the moment you finally slow down. And this part is important. This does not mean your symptoms are all in your head. It means the body and the nervous system are not separate. They are deeply connected. Sometimes the mind keeps moving forward, while the body is trying to speak through sensation. So the body is not only responding to what you eat, it is also responding to what you endure. The body doesn't argue, it reports. Here's a quiet truth. Burnout is often a boundary injury. Did you know that? I don't simply mean too much work. In my experience, the problem isn't always the work itself. It's when recovery is not equal to exertion. When downtime, when rest, when softness isn't allowed to balance out what you've been carrying. So in that sense, too much work isn't usually the deepest issue, but too many moments of self-abandonment can become very costly. Burnout is a repeated overriding of your limits. It's when you say yes, not because it's true, but because it feels easier than the discomfort of no. It's when your body asks to rest and you respond with performance, by pushing through. It's when your spirit asks for space and you respond with responsibility. And over time, this teaches the nervous system one message very clearly. My needs are not important or safe here. Not safe in your relationships, not safe in your workplace, not safe even inside your own self. And that's the beginning of exhaustion, fatigue, the kind that can become chronic. A body without recovery will eventually recover for you by shutting down. Who am I if I'm not the strong one? That is a question many of us have thought and sometimes said out loud within different relationships. We connect with one another through emotion, through joy and tenderness, but also through pain, disappointment, and fear. And because boundaries are relational in nature, they almost always carry an emotional charge as well. So let's look at why boundaries can feel so emotional. Because for many people, the struggle is not the boundary itself. It is what the boundary represents. If your identity has been carrying or has been built around being the strong one, the dependable one, the good one, the helper, the one who never needs anything, then a boundary can feel like betrayal. Betrayal of others, and sometimes betrayal of the version of you that learned to survive by overgiving. It can sound like, I'm letting people down. I'm being selfish. I'm changing. People won't like the new me. If I stop doing so much, will I still be loved? And here is the grief underneath all of that. Sometimes the most painful part of setting boundaries is realizing how much love you may have been trying to earn by giving too much. Notice what I just said. By giving too much. Not simply by giving, but by overgiving. And overgiving can create imbalance from the very beginning. I remember there was a time in my life when I felt I had to be the oasis where others could come to rest as they journeyed. In some ways, I still carry that impulse, but now with better boundaries. So if boundary setting feels tender, you're not failing. You're not weak. You are touching something real. And often, touching something real is where healing and rebalancing begin. Now, let's go one layer deeper. Sometimes overgiving isn't only social conditioning. Sometimes it's spiritual conditioning. Some people learned that goodness means self-sacrifice. that being virtuous means being available, that love means overextending. But love is not meant to erase you, and service is not meant to destroy you. A boundary is not the opposite of love. A boundary is what keeps love clean and healthy. It keeps resentment from quietly growing in the corners or in any relationship. Because resentment is often the body's way of saying, I gave more than I had. I said yes when it wasn't true. I disappeared to keep the peace. And resentment often builds when something becomes too much or too little. Too much demand, too little care. Too much taking, too little reciprocity. And honestly, this applies to almost every facet of life. Boundaries are how we correct the imbalance before it hardens into bitterness. How do we recognize when we are about to overgive? You know, we all have an early warning system. And if you listen, you'll start to notice the signs, the quiet tells right before you overgive. So let's name a few early signals. You feel pressure to respond immediately. You start explaining too much. You feel guilty before you've even decided. You hear yourself offering a solution before someone has even asked. Your body tightens as you type a reply. You feel a drop in your stomach when you agree. You feel anxious about being misunderstood if you say no. These are not flaws. These are signals. This is your body saying, we are about to override ourselves again. Some people think boundaries have to sound like a confrontation. No, they don't. Remember, boundaries are an act of love. They protect connection without requiring self-erasure. So here's a simple boundary ladder. From smallest to strongest. Level 1. The pause. This is the gentlest boundary and often the most powerful. It can sound like this. Let me check my schedule and get back to you. Let me sit with that and I'll respond soon. I can't answer right now, but I'll let you know. The pause gives your body time to speak. It creates space between the request and your reflex. Level 2. The soft no. It could sound like this. I can't do that right now. I'm not available for that. That wouldn't work for me. Simple, calm, clean. Level 3. the yes with structure. This is where you can still support without overextending. And it could sound like this: I can do X, but I can't do Y. I can help for 20 minutes. Or I can support you, but not in that way. Level 4, the clear no. Sometimes love requires clarity. No. No explanation, no bargaining, just truth. And I want you to notice something. Most healing and rebalancing begin at level 1, the pause. Because the pause is where inner authority returns. Here is your practice for this week. Delay the yes. When the request comes, when the text arrives, when someone asks you for something, try one of these. Let me check my schedule and get back to you. I can't answer right now, but I'll respond soon. Let me sit with that and let you know. Then pause. Put one hand on your chest or your belly and ask, what happens in my body when I imagine saying yes? Do I tighten? Do I brace? Do I speed up? Do I feel dread? Then also ask yourself, what happens when I imagine saying no or not yet? Do I exhale? Do I soften? Do I feel space? This is the body's truth. This is your body speaking. This is self-awareness as protection. And if all you do this week is pause before you commit, that's a boundary. A quiet one, but a real one. So here I would like to offer a reframe. This is especially for those who consider themselves the strong ones. If you are the one who carries everything, I want to say this plainly. Being strong does not mean being endlessly available. Being good does not mean being depleted. Being loving does not mean abandoning yourself. A healed and boundaried version of you still loves, still serves, still shows up, but not at the cost of your body, not at the cost of your peace. Now I invite you to pause and reflect on these and notice what comes up for you. Where have I been saying yes while my body is quietly saying no? What do I fear would happen if I disappointed someone? Who taught me that love requires overextending? What is one boundary that will protect my energy this week? What will it feel like to be the strong one and also feel supported? Thank you for spending this quiet time with me today. If something in this episode touched a nerve in a good way, or helped you feel a little less confused, overwhelmed by it all, you might share it with someone you love. You can also listen to the rest of Silent Medicine at silentmedicine.com/podcast for more calm, practical reflections. And if you'd like gentle support about once a week, you're welcome to join the Silent Medicine newsletter there as well. A gentle reminder before we close. This podcast is for education and reflection only. They are offered as an invitation to inform, inspire, and to support your journey of deeper self-discovery and healing. It isn't medical or psychological advice or care, and it doesn't replace working with qualified professionals who know you and your history. If you are navigating trauma, cohesive relationships, or intense fear responses, please seek support from a qualified practitioner who can help you explore this safely. Until next time, stay close to your body. It always tells the truth. And may you keep listening to the healer within. I am Dr. Nnenna, and this is Silent Medicine. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.